Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Horizon Wings educational videos. And today we're going to actually do a little bit of one of our programs. It's called our bird brain programs. And we're going to actually compare the adaptations and the intelligence of each species of bird that you're going to see here today. We're going to bring out 4 different birds. And just kids, we're going to guess the 4 birds we're bringing out, and then you can guess what order of intelligence it's going to be. I'll give you a second. The first one, obviously I'm giving it away here. We're going to start with the owl. We also have with us a parrot, a crow, and a peregrine falcon. So you think about which ones you think are going to be the smartest. We're going to go with the lowest level up to the highest level of intelligence. So I'm going to start here with Oakley. And Oakley is our red-faced eastern screech owl. And you met Oakley in a prior video. We have her because she's a human imprint. And eastern screech owls are fairly common in our state. And you can go back and watch our video and learn more information about Oakley. But as far as intelligence for owls, there's an old myth out there that everyone talks about, the wise old owl. And actually that's not really quite true. They have a lot of amazing adaptations that help them, but as far as their brain size and their intelligence, probably not so much. And a couple of their adaptations that I can talk about are their eyes, how large their eyes are to help them see and hunt. And their eyes of eastern screech owl makes up about 1/5 of their total body weight. That's how large their eyes are. And actually they have really big ears too. If we could peel back the feathers on the side of Oakley's face here, around the facial disc, you could see these very large openings for his ears. And amazing. So because the size of their eyes and their ears, there really isn't a whole lot of room for brains for these birds. So I talked a little bit about their eyes and their ears as 2 of the adaptations that help them with their smaller size brain, but we'll talk a little bit more about them. And their eyes. So their eyes are really, really large, and I said that makes up 1/5 of their total body weight. And their eyes are so large that they're fixed in their heads because there isn't room for muscles for them to be able to move them. So they have another really cool adaptation that helps them, and that's the number of vertebrae that they have in their neck. So they have twice as many as you and I. We have 7, and all mammals have 7. This bird here has 14, so it makes their neck really bendable and flexible. And there's different cells that are inside of your eyes. You have rod cells and cone cells. And rod cells help you bring in more light. And this bird here has a lot more rod cells than you and I do that enables them to be able to hunt and see at nighttime. It brings in that light. And their ears are really, really large. And this little bird actually has something called asymmetrical hearing. So she's got one ear that sits up higher on this side and one ear that's a little bit lower, points down. And that just helps bring in the sound. So everything about this bird, another adaptation, helps bring in sound for this bird to be able to hunt at nighttime. And then they've got the silent flight that you learned about before, and then they've got the special toes. So all of those adaptations help them overcome the smaller size brain that these animals have. And okay kids, now what do you think our next bird is that we're going to be bringing out? We have 3 other ones. We have a crow, we have a peregrine falcon, and we have a parrot. So what's up next?
Okay. And this is Athena, she's our peregrine falcon. And we're wondering how many of you guessed that the peregrine would be up next. These birds are a pretty intelligent bird, but they also have some wonderful adaptations that make them the world's fastest creature. Now this bird will fly to heights as high as 3,000 feet to spot her prey items, other birds below. And some of her adaptations that help to make her the marvelous hunter and flyer that she is, they include the fact that she has very large eyes so she can see her prey items from a distance. Nictitating membranes or third eyelids that help to keep those eyes protected during flight. She can see through those membranes, but she draws them up from one corner of her eye to the other to help keep those eyes protected. Her feathers are very sleek and smooth, almost suede-like in appearance compared to that little owl that you just saw. She has a long tail, but not exceedingly long. And those smooth, sleek feathers and that body shape, sort of shaped like a bullet or a teardrop, very aerodynamic. And those are all things that help help to eliminate drag. Drag is something that would slow you down. If you was a big bulky bird, like maybe a red tail, and had fluffy feathers like an owl, or a long tail like an accipiter, like a Cooper's hawk. Those are things that would get caught in the wind and create drag and slow her down. So she is built for speed. She has baffles, I guess you could call them, in her nostrils, and that helps to control the flow of air. This bird has been documented diving after her prey items as fast as 240 miles an hour. And you can imagine how difficult it would be to breathe with that force of wind in your face. So those baffles help to control that. She has malar marks, like North American falcons do, under her cheeks. And I don't know if you kids out there can think of who else puts black marks under their cheeks or why. But if you watch sports, you can see that baseball players and football players put black marks on their cheeks, and that's to help absorb the sunlight. Since she's a diurnal bird, a bird of the bright open sunny sky, so black marks probably help for the same reason. She has a notch in her beak called a toenail tooth. It's very pronounced, more so than some other birds, and that's helped to use the dispatch of her prey items. It is used for crushing. She has a very strong keel or breastbone, and that's used to help sometimes slam her prey items out of the sky. And she has long, finger-like toes used for grasping or squeezing, or sometimes actually making a fist and punching her prey items out of the sky. So now this bird has gone into her dive or her stoop. She's pretty amazing. She'll corkscrew down, but she can keep her head pretty still as her body moves around to keep those eyes focused on that prey item. And now she's grabbed that bird out of the sky and she's pulling back up, just like a fighter pilot in a jet. She's got to bank around and come back up because you don't want to hit the ground at 200 miles an hour. So as she's doing that, like a fighter pilot, she's pulling G-forces, or forces of gravity. One G-force will hold your bottom in your chair today. Fighter pilot might be able to do 6 to 9 G-forces before he gets dizzy and he passes out due to lack of oxygen. This bird has been documented doing 3 times that, 18 to 24 G-forces. Makes this 2-pound bird closer to about 60 pounds when she's doing that. And she can pull all those G-forces without passing out, and it's because of how she is built. She has a really large heart. That keel or breastbone helps to protect that. It can beat upwards of 600 times a minute. So she's much more efficient at pumping that oxygen-rich blood to her brain than you and I. So a very, very powerful bird, also an intelligent bird. You're going to learn with one of the next birds that they also have that notch in their beak, and they use it for crushing. And through DNA, this bird is actually more closely related to our parrot than it is a red-tailed hawk. So a very intelligent bird, one that's widely used for falconry. They are not difficult at all to train. They are very intelligent and responsive to their handlers. All these adaptations also make her a strong flyer. They've been known to migrate over 10,000 miles in a single year. And they cross open bodies of water as large as oceans. Other birds don't like to do that because there's none of those thermals that rise from the ground below. But this bird is strong enough to be able to migrate over those large open bodies of water. We have 2 birds left. We have a crow and a parrot. And who do you think is going to be next?
So, how many of you guessed the American crow? That's right, he's 3rd on the list here of intelligence with these birds, or 2nd from the top, actually. So, Corbin is an American crow. He's with us because he's a human imprint. He was actually taken from his nest, and you've learned all of his information from a prior video, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. But as far as intelligence with these birds, they are very, very amazing. They are so, so smart. They're in a family called the corvids, and that includes the raven, the crow, blue jays, and magpies. And they're all very, very smart birds. And you can see he's actually trying to take his jets out right now. He's so smart that he could do that. If we left those jesses in, he would actually be able to take those right out. He helps us when we go in there to take this leash off. He'll pull it right out for you. But some examples of some intelligence for these birds, they recognize people, and they've done studies out in Washington State where these researchers have put on these big scary masks and scared the adult crows. And their youngsters that are in the nest have never seen those scary masks, yet when they grow up they know to be afraid of those people with the big scary masks on. These birds do communicate with each other. Typically you're always going to see a crow in a family group. It's usually the parents, last year's young, help raise this year's young. And what they do is they'll post a sentry out there for any danger that's going to approach, and they give an alarm call when something's coming, whether it be a person, a dog, a fox, or a raptor maybe. And they let each other know, the family know, that there's danger approaching. If that sentry doesn't do his job right, the family lets him know that he did not do a good job, because that could be disastrous to the whole family if he's not doing his job. Some other examples of intelligence here with these birds is they can speak. They pick up phrases quite easily. Corbin actually used to say hello, but we do have another aviary mate in there with him called Madison now, who's a little more dominant. And Madison actually does all the speaking in the aviary, and if you're here at Horizon Wings, you will hear Madison talk quite frequently, and you will actually think it's Mary Beth's voice. Madison has gotten me on a number of occasions where I think Mary Beth is out in the back in the aviary, and it's actually Madison saying, "How are you? What you doing?" Madison's favorite phrase is, "What you doing, doing." And I think we tried to get a video clip of him doing that. We may have that in the prior video as well. These birds love shiny objects. That is true. People hear that all the time. They're very skeptical, though, of new things. They're very smart. They know to be afraid. Something's different, something's not quite right. They're going to go up and test it. And by that, I mean they go up and they hit it with their beak, and they jump back and they test it. So we'll put new toys or new enrichment in their aviary, and it actually takes them a couple of days to get used to something that's new in there before they're comfortable enough to play with it. Corbin here used to actually retrieve for me. He used to fetch a Gatorade cap in his aviary. Corvids do something that's pretty cool. They'll cache things too. We can go in with our raven, Julian, and watch him. You give him some mice or something good first thing in the morning, and he'll take it from you, and he goes over to the aviary and he'll start digging a hole and puts that in there for later. But if he's watching you, he knows you're watching him, he puts it in there, makes a hole, takes it out, quickly covers it up, and then puts it somewhere else. So he does a fake cache to try to fake you out. That's how smart he is. They've done other tests where they've given a captive crow some tools to try to figure out how to get a treat being a high-end piece of meat for them. And they give them a string and a stick, and they've worked it out, and they figured out 4 and 5 steps ahead of the game of what they have to do in order to try to get that treat. So that's pretty cool. That's how smart these birds are. They said they actually have the cognitive ability of a 5-year-old, a toddler. That's how big their brain is. That's how smart they are. Some other things I can tell you for examples on how smart they are is they like to eat nuts. But if you look at his beak, it's not a real strong beak for cracking nuts. So what they're going to do is in the wild, they'll pick up a nut and they go to an intersection, a busy intersection, and drop the nut and let the cars crush the nuts for them. That's pretty cool, and that's really smart for them to do that. But what's even smarter is that they watch the traffic light so they know when it's safe for them to go down to avoid getting hit by a car. So extremely intelligent. You can spend hours in with these birds, here are captive ones, watching and observing them, and you can just see the intelligence on them. They look to figure things out all the time. Julian, our raven now, we have 2 of them. We have a female and a male, and Julian's on one side of the aviary, and Maeve is on the other with a door in between them with a latch. And a couple days in a row, Julian was in the aviary with Maeve, and we thought the wind was blowing it open until we realized Mary Beth closed the gate, turned around, closed the latch, turned around, and Julian was showing her how he could open the latch and figure out how to get in with Maeve. So they're really, really smart birds. They're a lot of times deemed a pest out there. Some people don't like them. They're really important for our environment and just absolutely intelligent creatures. So that leaves our last bird coming out here, who's got the highest intelligence of the four, and you guessed it, it's the parrot that's coming out next.
Hello again, this is Bart. Bart is a yellow-naped Amazon. Bart is about 13 years old, and believe it or not, that's pretty much a baby for these birds. They've been known to live into their 80s and above. Yes, and as you can see, they can be very vocal. Bart, Bart, can you wave hello to everybody? There you go. Give us a wave. Good bird. And they're a very intelligent animal, even more so than a crow. The crow has a brain equal in body size to that of a primate, as does Bart. The crow has a cognitive ability of about a 5-year-old and can solve 7- and 8-step puzzles, as can the parrot. The parrots can solve up to 9 steps or so in a puzzle. And Bart's very excited because he's not been in this building before, so he's very excited to come here. So these birds that not only have the capacity to imitate speech, they're very loud. Yes, they're very loud. Not only do they have the capacity to imitate speech, but they will use their own emotions to form sentences and their own thoughts to form sentences that are appropriate for situations. An example, I was walking barefoot in the bird room, which I shouldn't do, and my African gray was out. And Teddy spied my toes from under the cage, and he bit my foot rather hard, and I fell backwards into another cage. And it hurt, and I stumbled to get up, and Teddy walked out from under the cage, and he looked at me and said, "Oh, are you okay?" So they can put thoughts and emotions together and sentences that we have never taught them. So they are a highly emotional animal, a flock animal that needs to be with their flock in order to be healthy. People think, I want a parrot. They make a good pet. Things you need to know, again, highly intelligent. So intelligent that I've known these birds to take apart their own cages. Not just open doors, but to take the nuts and bolts off and disassemble their cages while their owners are away. Because they have to have something to do. They get bored sitting in that cage every day. You can't get one of these birds and not stimulate it and leave it in the cage every day because they are so smart every day, all day. They don't make a great pet. I don't know how well you can see this, but we gave Bart that almond, and Bart is making a lovely mess. He's making short work out of that almond. That beak will do the same to anything in the house. Any woodwork, anything electrical, cords hanging around, fingers. That's a very sharp, very powerful beak. We talked about the toenail tooth with the peregrine falcon. And that's what this bird has also, that notch in his beak that they use for crushing. Sometimes even the owner's fingers. So again, very intelligent. They need a lot of stimulation. They need time with that person. If you think a dog takes a lot of your time, then don't get a parrot. They are also loud, as you can hear, beyond destructive. They make a lot of noise. They have their jungle hour sometimes. Every night when the sun sets, Bart screams. He may be screaming like he would do in the wild to gather his flock because there are safeties in numbers. Would you like another one? You can show them how well you can crush. They're not done with the first. So, very intelligent, very noisy, very messy animals. And they don't always make the best pet for that reason. The mess you see this bird making, well, that's how the jungle gets fertilized. They eat the seeds, they throw it all over the jungle floor, or they swallow the seeds whole, they fly a mile away, and they poop on the jungle floor, and now they've fertilized and reseeded another part of the jungle. Your house is your jungle, they will do the same thing. So, on your scale of intelligence, the birds that we've had, the owl, the peregrine, the crow, and the parrot, this bird here is the most intelligent, and as I said, doesn't always make the greatest pet. They really need a lot of stimulation. They need to be out of their cage. They need to have things to do or they become destructive. And not just destructive to their environment. Some of these birds, they'll get destructive to themselves. They pluck their feathers. They'll actually self-mutilate if they aren't given the proper diets and the proper stimulation. That's how intelligent these birds are. If you're thinking of getting one as a pet, adopt, don't shop. Go to a rescue and work with these birds to see if it's something that you really want or will really fit into your family and your lifestyle. Thank you for watching. All right, Bart, can you say goodbye to everybody? Give us a wave. Give us a wave goodbye. A real wave. That's a good wave. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.